Hi parents, I thought I'd make this video to help introduce myself and the maths program at Year 7 for your students this year. So my name's Nathan Tomic. This is me up in the top corner here. I'm sure I'll get to meet you properly at some time soon, but in the short term this is just my little introduction to you. So what you can see on the screen at the moment is our maths page, and it's the page dedicated to your particular child's class with me. And I thought I'd just walk you through a few things that your students would see on a class page, and also how you might be able to help your child if need be. So you won't be seeing all this yourself, but again, you can always ask your child to log in to show you their class page. But essentially, we work through all these different topics throughout the year. We're currently started in the positive integers, or the number area over here. And we work through a set of different problems from primarily a product called MathSpace, which I'll also show you in a second. So students each lesson have what we call a lesson log, which is this section here, where I basically post what we're going to be doing in that class. Now the lesson log is usually up the evening before the class, sometimes only the very morning of that day, unfortunately. Not to make excuses, but I do have a lot of other roles at the school, and sometimes I've sort of got to balance my time a little bit, but I try to always have the lesson logs up before the lesson begins. I use a fairly standard structure for all of my maths classes, and I've been talking to the students about this, so they look very similar lesson to lesson for that reason. So we have a title up the top, we have the intention for that lesson and what we hope to achieve by the end of the lesson, the things that we can actually do. We run a product called Waypoints, which is a brief check-in that we do every Thursday. So your child every Thursday in our class in the morning will do a 5-minute check-in, which is like a little bit of an update each week of how they're going, and it gives me some really good data to follow up on. And I always have that section there just to remind them if they didn't do it from last week for some reason, maybe they were absent or for some reason they didn't do it, they need to try and fix that up and do it before the following Thursday. I then usually have anything to do with videos or other tutorials like that. For most lessons, I actually create a bit of a video that goes through some sample questions and talks a little bit about the same sort of things I might talk about in class. So I think that's a really good resource for students who maybe miss a lesson for some reason, or who need that little bit of a reminder later on when they're not in class with me anymore. So there's usually a video either made by me, one of the other staff, or sometimes there's an appropriate video already from the internet, which I will link in here as well. But more often than not, I'll make my own quick video there. I usually then have a section here that talks about any other resources. So in this case, this is a link to another part of our Schoolbox page that has a list of keywords that relate to different operations. So what is it, addition, operation, subtraction, etc. So usually something that might be useful for students to print out or have with them for various reasons. We then get to sort of the bulk of the lesson section, where we talk about the work they need to do. So as I said, we use a product called MathSpace, which I'll show you in a moment. That's the logo for it. And the way I do these questions, which will be something I should talk about with MathSpace, is I have 3 sets of increasingly complex sets of questions, which we call consolidating, proficient, and mastering. Then I also provide a set of additional questions for students who either want or need a challenge after that. But I'll come back and talk about how MathSpace works in a second. And finally, I usually have the section for the topic test. At the moment in this example, we don't have a test coming up soon, so there's nothing really there. But as we get closer to our test, I will put extra information there about revision, about preparing, about when the test will be, what they can bring in, and so forth. So it's a fairly standard lesson log. So that's what your students will see from week to week or lesson to lesson. And if they are home, for example, on any given day when they have a maths class and they are capable of doing some work, they're not that sick that they're stuck in bed, then I would certainly encourage them to still log on and try and keep up with what we're doing. Now, I've mentioned MathSpace many times. I'm just going to bring up a MathSpace to show you. So again, I can't show you what I see, unfortunately, because I can't bring up students' results on screen. Of course, that would be inappropriate. But what I'll show you is what a textbook looks like. So we're currently doing this section here. So what students would be given would be a set of questions from this product. So they would always start with the lesson. So again, this is like the traditional textbook, if you like. So this is the written down part that they can do. And the first set of questions that I mentioned before, which is the consolidation questions, always bring the student to this section first. So they are expected to have a read through it, or at least a summary through it, depending on how confident they might be, and go through this. So this is what I basically go through in my video tutorial. I'll go through and summarize this information, pointing out what's important, and then I'll come down here to these practice questions, and I'll usually do these questions in the video to help demonstrate the skills. Okay, so again, if you want to have a watch those videos, you're more than welcome as well. Ask your son or daughter to show you the links or share the link with you. But basically, I go through this page. Most of those videos only go for somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes at the most, usually a bit less if I can help it, but it really just depends on how complex the topic is. So again, the students go through those questions, or sorry, that work area. Then I've assigned them questions. So they're going to get a set of questions like this. So we do what we call adaptive tasks. So basically, as I mentioned before, there are 3 levels. So all students start with consolidating, which ideally means they're doing the base level, the minimum that a year 7 student should be able to do. And the way the system works is it will ask them a set of questions until it believes they have demonstrated the skills necessary to reach that consolidation level. If they don't reach that level, it would in theory keep asking questions infinitely, but I talk to the students about realizing when they've reached their limit and they really don't seem to be succeeding any further, and that would be when they can stop. So most students will be able to at least reach a consolidation level, and then that would stop at that point and say, hey, you've reached that level, and then they need to go into the next set of questions. So they go from consolidating to the proficiency level. So that's a little bit more complex, and it's showing that they've really understood the topic and they can do that topic well. So same thing, ask a new set of questions at a proficient level until such time that they show those skills. And then we have the final level, which is the mastery level. So for students who have really understood the topic, who've definitely shown a good level of understanding, they can show that mastery level. And it works in the same way. Set of questions until such time they show those skills. After that, then they basically have a set of questions that are just generic, which are all do them in your book questions essentially. They're not being marked in the sense of which level that, because they've already shown mastery after that. But those are the questions, which I call the additional questions, that students can do to fill in time sometimes, to be honest, to push themselves a little bit harder, to give themselves an extra challenge, or just for extra practice if they really feel they need to. I don't consider those additional questions as compulsory, but again, it's really encouraged for students to have a go at them if they find they've got time, especially still in class or even at home. I'm going to show you just a really quick question in itself. So you might get a question like this, which is a multiple choice question, and they basically are expected to do any working out in their book, and that's a really important part of my expectations, that all working out gets done in their book first before they put an answer in. So a question like this one here, if I have a little look at it, so we'll just do a quick try so you can really see what it looks like. So here is the question: which of the following is described by the sum of 5 and 3? And of course, this topic we're looking at worded questions, so they have to realize that sum means addition, and we're summing or adding together 5 and 3. So they should, if appropriate, now this question doesn't have any working out, but they should do working out in their book first, as I said, if it's appropriate, and then they'll come and either enter in, or in this case, a multiple choice question, choose the one that's correct and press submit. They get told straight away if they're right or wrong, and it also will tell them if they're partially correct, and they get options for hints. They get options to go back to the resources and watch videos that MathSpace have provided, etc. So there's always options for a child to have another go and to get that question correct. Also, and again, I can't show this here, unfortunately, because it's not a full student view, but students always have the option to go back to any question they might have got wrong and ask the system to have another go. So they can always re-practice that question until such time that they get it right and feel confident about the question. So there's really no excuse for students not being able to progress, to find work to do, and to keep going until such time that they are confident in their work. So that's a little bit of introduction of what Maths Space looks like. So basically that is really what the maths class will be like, most lessons. We're lucky enough to have maths pretty much every day except for Fridays this semester. That might change in semester two. And what that also means is that most evenings there will be some level of maths homework. Now, how much homework students have in maths will in part depend on how hard they worked in the lesson. So obviously if they've wasted some time or not been working to their best ability, then they might have a bit more maths work to try and complete before the next lesson the next day. If they've been working really hard, then chances are they'll have less. It is important for students, even at year 7, to be doing regular homework. We tend to discuss or talk about an hour of homework on most weeknights. Not always every night and not always set homework, but it's important for students to get in good habits, put aside time and practice that skill of doing homework. As a former home-based teacher or mentor leader, I would certainly talk to my students about putting that time aside, and even if they didn't have set homework, doing things like reading a book, reviewing your notes, practicing your times tables in the case of maths are all good ways to keep that practice of homework and the time that they have set aside for it, instead of going, yep, no homework today, I'm just going to watch TV instead. That gets them out of practice. So that's pretty much it. That's the gist of what our maths classes look like and how they function. I make it very clear to my students that any student asks for help, they will always get help from me. I'm happy to receive emails. I'm happy to get questions outside of class time, of course. Most of the time, I'll try to respond with a quick little video explaining where they made a mistake or how they can improve. And most of the time, that'll be within 24 hours if I can at all do so. But I do want to also make it clear that, and I've said this very, very clearly to the students, that that comes with the condition that they've had a real attempt. I do not believe in spoon feeding children. They need to have read the work, they need to have had genuine attempts, they need to have thought through their question, and then by all means they can ask for help, and I will always do so. But I will not stand there and give children answers because they couldn't be bothered having a go. So I hope that you will support that philosophy as well. Um, for you as parents as well, I'm also always happy to receive any questions or comments from you. If you feel your child's struggling, or if you feel they even need extra work, by all means you can email me at any time and I will look at what I can do to assist there. Now this video is getting a bit longer than I intended. We're up to just over 12 minutes here, pushing 13. So thank you if you've stuck through this long. If you do have questions, please feel free to email me. And as I said, I hope to be able to meet you in person at some point in the near future.